Before the main part of the podcast, I'd like to give a big shout out to Happiful Magazine, who have sponsored me to go on to their mental health first aid course for adults, which is a 2-day course. I'm looking forward to doing that later this month, which is July 2018, and I shall do a special review episode once I have completed that. Becky has completed the mental health first aid course for young people, so we can talk about that one as well at the same time. And we are hoping to do some more work with Happiful Magazine. And just in case you have not heard of them before, Happiful Magazine is a monthly publication with their mission to create a healthier, happier and more sustainable society. They aim to provide informative, inspiring and topical stories about mental health and well-being. They want to break the stigma of mental health in society, just like we do, and to shine a light on the positivity and support that should be available for everyone, no matter their situation, which is extremely important. No matter your situation, you should be able to get the help that you need. There's also a free e-magazine, and you can also buy hard copies, and you can find this information out on their website, and their website is happiful.com. And I'm going to make sure that I have a link in the show notes for you. And I'm hoping that this is going to be a fantastic new relationship that will have some more exciting things coming up in the near future. We're also taking part in the 13th Annual Podcast Awards, where you can nominate the Mental Health Book Club podcast. If you haven't done so already, please consider going over and voting for us. All you need to do is head over to podcastawards.com. Again, I'll put a link in the show notes for you, and just nominate us under the People's Choice Awards and the health category. We also now have a range of merchandise, which includes t-shirts, tote bags and mugs, just to name a few. Again, you can find this on our website, so head over to mentalhealthbookclub.com and there is a link to our new shop. And finally, you now can find us over on Patreon, where you can sponsor the podcast with as little as $2 a month. And that will allow you to get early access to full episodes, because I've now cut them into 2 half-hour episodes. You will also get special material that we will put out from time to time, and you also get some additional benefits such as being entered into book giveaways and those kind of things. We only have a couple of supporters at the moment, but we are extremely thankful for their support, and when we reach our targets of $200 a month, which I do think is a little optimistic on our behalf. However, I'm going to keep trying. We will give a proportion, so $50 of your monthly donations to Mind each month. Hello and welcome to the Mental Health Book Club podcast with your hosts Sydney Timmins and Becky Lawrence. We would like to take this opportunity to let you know that we will be covering a diverse range of mental health topics that may be distressing to some listeners. You can find a full list of the topics being covered in each episode in the show notes. Please check the show notes before listening to any of our episodes. Welcome to the Mental Health Book Club podcast with Sydney Timmins and Becky Lawrence. This is part 2 of the book review for A Tiny Piece of Something Greater by Jude. Just to recap, Becky is going to reread the book blurb, but once that has happened, we will jump straight back into where we left off on Monday's episode.
So, this book has 4-star review on amazon.co.uk from 1 review. It has a 4.5 stars on amazon.com from 10 reviews, and on Goodreads it has 45 ratings, making it a 4.13 stars. Sydney gave this 5 stars and I gave this 4. So, Reed Watsford has a lot of secrets and a past he can't quite escape. While staying at his grandmother's condo in Key Largo, he signs up for introductory dive classes where he meets Joaquim Oliveira, a Brazilian dive instructor with wanderlust. Driven by an instant magnetic pull that could have been a hookup quickly deepens. As their relationship evolves, they must learn to navigate the challenges of Reed's mental illness on their own and with each other.
So, changing the subject slightly, I think maybe we should talk about Joaquim and his response and his concerns about Reed and his friend's perception of Reed because of the difficulties with the behaviour that Reed is exhibiting.
Well, when Reed opens up to him about his diagnosis, he feels he can't share that with the people he works with and the friends that also know Reed. And this might come off that he actually is embarrassed by it, but actually in the book it explains it's because he's worried about how those people's perception of Reed might change, and actually Reed's trying to live his life.
Yeah. And it's also not his place to tell others that he is suffering with a mental health condition.
And actually, he even asks Reed if he can talk to his sister about it before...
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, before he even discussed it with someone who Reed isn't going to meet or bump into even.
Yeah, and I think the sister is so supportive and is so on kind of the same wavelength as Joaquin, because she is the closest confidant he has.
Yeah.
And he feels like he's able to say anything to her and voice all of his concerns. And I think that is also really important if you are someone who is trying to support someone else with mental illness, that you yourself take care of yourself.
And Reed actually asks him if he's got someone to talk to. And that's when Joaquin says, well, can I talk to my sister? And I think that's really respectful. It shows a true respect of not only what Reed is going through, but also what the fact that this mental health illness isn't his. It is not Reed. It is just something he has to deal with, like an illness of any kind.
Yeah, and although it's not necessarily Reed, like he isn't his mental health condition, it is a part of him, and they have to work out how to deal with that together as a partnership and also as individuals. So Joaquin needs to come to terms and understand the condition himself, and then so does Reed in terms of telling him, but then they also have to figure out a way of how to work this out together.
Yeah. Well, Joaquin says things and Reed goes, oh, you've been Googling.
Yeah.
And he
Dr.
goes,
Google.
Is that okay? And Reed actually thinks it's quite sweet that he took the time to find out about it.
Effort, yeah, because you only, I don't know, most people wouldn't necessarily do something unless they were interested and there was some aspect of caring for the other person in that situation. I know that I tend to Google a lot of things, particularly if I find out that someone has a particular condition, just because I want to be more knowledgeable about the situation that that other person is in.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I don't think I would have done it in the past, but certainly now I'm much more proactive.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And actually, I like the way that Joaquin's friends really accepting of Reed and what's going on. And they go, when it comes to about the mood swings and stuff, he goes, yeah, well, we've noticed, but you like him. Yeah. This is the way it is. He seems like a nice guy. Yeah, let's make it work.
Yeah, and I think he's also worried that because of those mood swings and the changes in behaviour that Reed exhibits, are these people and his friends going to be worried about why he is putting in the time and effort with Reed?
Yeah.
And is there some kind of judgment associated?
As if Reed's not good enough for him. Yeah, or not the right person for him. And that's up to a couple to decide.
Exactly. It's not anyone else's.
But people often do judge. But his friends in the book actually go, no, you seem to like him. You seem to want to get to know him. Let's
if only more people were like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although saying that, I think sometimes an outside point of view from a friend, if you were really concerned, then
might be helpful.
Yeah. But at the same time saying kind of, look, I will support you, whatever you decide to do, if you go forward with this person or not, but my concerns are,
X, Y, and Z. Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. The other thing that I wanted to pick up on was this discussion about the codependent relationship that Reed has with his ex-boyfriend.
Yeah,
and how he keeps showing up. Yeah. Exactly. That's a bit outrageous.
Oh, my Lord. He just shows up at Reed's place of work. He hasn't got anywhere to stay. He hasn't got any plans. He just came to see him.
And yeah, it's a bit unfair, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also the passive aggressiveness of the fact that he goes into Reed's condo and he doesn't take his shoes off and things like that.
When he knows Reed is really sensitive to,
everything being clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is really interesting. And I think also it's important because it identifies that there are going to be people out there that no matter how much they love each other, the relationship that they're in is just never going to work. I mean, they talk about how one of them would suck the other back into an argument of some description, and the fact that Felix cheated on Reed, which is why their relationship ended in the first place, but also being self-destructive together. And yeah, I think that is quite an interesting concept in itself because, as I said, there are people that are just not right for each other. And this is the case with Felix and Reed.
Well, I think Reed feels that he can't ever trust Felix again after the cheating.
Could you? I think that cheating is probably one of the most difficult things to come back from as a couple.
Especially as he lied about it as well. So he didn't even face up to it. He then lies. So, of course, he finds it hard to trust him, but he does get pulled in and pulled out. And he feels that even when he does set boundaries for Felix, he doesn't respect them, including he left the country.
He says he lives miles and miles away. And yet
he's left the city.
He rocks up on the doorstep. And Felix is like, hi, and rocks up to his workplace.
Yeah, his workplace. And he's got nowhere to stay. So he is already expecting to stay. And Reed doesn't really sure what to do, and he almost tries to send him packing, and then he makes him feel sorry for him,
which again is the codependency, isn't it? It's the fact that he is able to manipulate Reed into getting his own way.
It's the push pull, it's the I want you, oh I don't want you, I want you, I don't want you.
And then the inevitable falling back into bed with each other, which just isn't helping the situation because it just makes the lines even more blurred.
And this is one of the reasons that Reed has separated himself from that relationship by miles.
Yeah, well, miles and miles and miles. Let's say that is not a close thing, is it? He's not close by at all.
I think Wakim actually deals with this really well. Again,
I would have been furious if it was me, and jealous.
Especially when he says like he's staying with him, and he does ring Wakim and say, look, can you come and stay as well, because I can't be there on my own with him. And that's really like obviously calling out for help, and that's why Wakim goes, okay, I'm there, even though this is a bit weird, the fact that he's here, the fact that he showed up, the fact that all this is going on, but he is again supporting Reed.
So Reed also talks about his treatment of his cyclothymia, and he is undergoing dialectical behaviour therapy, which is something that's very close to my heart. I probably know quite a lot about it because I've been through it myself, but
have you done a podcast on it separately?
I have, yes. So there is a podcast or two about what dialectical behaviour therapy is and some of the key things that you learn through dialectical behaviour therapy. And one of the things that I didn't realise is that it could be used in the treatment of cyclothymia, which I understand how, because DBT teaches you things such as distress tolerance. And if you are going through periods of depression and hypomania, those skills are going to be really important for you to be able to function on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, it does sound like it was really useful. And actually, he makes the time to still see his group therapy through online, and they are talking on a weekly basis. He skips it a few weeks
because of this new relationship, and he doesn't necessarily have time. But he does go back. And also, they give him very good advice because they are going through the DBT program themselves. And they also have insight because they have been through Reed's journey, because they've heard him speak about things. They've heard him speak about Felix and the way that Felix has not necessarily the most useful part of Reed's life and hasn't necessarily helped him to get better. Or even just be able to deal with
I think Felix isn't in a place where he can, because he's got his own issues going on.
And he in himself needs help. And Reed has encouraged him, but he has refused that help. And something that, again, is important to note is that if a person doesn't necessarily want help, there's no way you can make them get the help that they need.
No, you do need somebody to embrace the idea of getting help and getting some kind of change and willing to talk. And there's so much involved, that means it has to be voluntary.
And the fact that you're probably going to be coming face to face with things that aren't necessarily easy or comfortable to deal with.
Which you've got to do in your own time. It took me 30 years before I got therapy for my childhood properly, and that's because I couldn't face it.
So by the end of the book, we hear or we read that Wakim and Reed are going off into the sunset, but yet there's still scope for more. There is potentially another book, and we would love to read another book about the relationship, and in some ways the development that you have in dealing with mental illness in a relationship from a beginning relationship, if that makes sense. So there's differences, isn't there, between the start of a relationship where it's all, they say, the honeymoon period.
Once that honeymoon period is over and you start seeing people with even less rose-tinted glasses, as they say, for who they really are, are things going to change for them, or are they still going to be as accepting of each other? And I hope they are.
Yeah, and from the way that the relationship has been currently, I do think that there is positives in the future for these two. However, it would be interesting to see how they would face challenges together.
Yeah, definitely. Really great book. Overall, I did really enjoy it. It was a really good story, as well as facing some really good issues and dealing with them in a really raw way.
Yeah.
I think that the description, especially the scene where Reed wants to touch the ceiling and
because that's a coping mechanism for him, is instead of hurting himself, the Artex on the ceiling, he's trying to recreate some kind of feeling, and that's the only thing that, like, he's been obsessed with it. And it's really sweet where Joaquin comes along and helps him so he doesn't fall over and break his neck because he's standing on a chair trying to push his hand against the Artex on the ceiling.
Yeah, and I think those kind of moments and the way they're described in the book, I think are really realistic and really true to what it would be like, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, I do too. Just coming back quickly to add in further back when we're talking about Felix. So Reed also really struggles with setting boundaries with Felix. So Felix seems to try and push kind of the way that what he wants onto Reed. And he can do that by manipulating him. But when Reed tries to set boundaries, then that's when things start to fall apart, because he's able to get his own way. And that in itself is going to impact Reed's self-esteem and self-worth, because he feels like he's giving in all the time to Felix.
Well, Felix becomes the more important.
Yeah.
Rather than an equal relationship.
And that really factors into this codependent relationship as well. The final thing that I want to say, and this is just my personal preference, and that is the style of writing, and it's written in the first person present tense, and this is something that I generally struggle with, and I don't necessarily want to put anyone off of this book because I do think it is a great read. It took me a while to get past this, but as I said, that's just me. I don't think Becky had any of the same issues. I think she found it okay.
No, I really liked it. The way it was written, I found it really accessible. Really enjoyed the way it read.
So if you have yet to get a copy of this book, head over to our website. There is a link on our website. We would like to also remind you that we have started to make 30-minute episodes, where episodes come out Monday, Wednesday and Friday on a week that we talk about the books, with hopefully an author interview on the Friday. If you want to get the full episode in one go, then you can head over to our Patreon page, which is patreon.com/MHBC, and for as little as $2 a month, you can get the entire episode. You can get advanced copies of the episodes, and you will start to get additional benefits. You can also be entered into free prize draws, so we've got some books to give away and various bits and pieces, which, I don't know, I would highly recommend, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, that would be lovely. And we would thank you very much if you did so.
Of course we would. Also, remember to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss any of our episodes, because why would you want to?
Never.
Joking. But it would really, really help us out, and we would really appreciate it.
Also, if you also fancy reviewing us, please do. We'd love to get some feedback as to how you think we're doing. And if you think there's anything we need to include that we don't, or something you particularly like that we do.
Yep. And also remember, we are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Please come over and follow. We would love to say hi. We love to interact with you. So in the meantime, it's okay not to be okay.
And if you're not okay, talk.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Mental Health Book Club podcast. If you need additional help with your mental health, please contact the Samaritans on 116-123, which is a 24-hour helpline. And if you need additional information about mental health issues, please visit Mind at mind.org.uk. Our next book is Insane, America's Criminal Treatment of Mental Illness by Alyssa Roth. Our next episode with the Secret Psychiatrist will be about cyclothymia and how to help someone who is dealing with a mood disorder. If you'd like to find out more about the MHBC podcast, please visit our website, mentalhealthbookclub.com. We really hope that you enjoy this podcast, and we would like to hear what you think. Please head over to Twitter and follow us at MHBC_podcast, or head over to Facebook and follow our Facebook page, which is Mental Health Book Club. If you would like to show your support further, please share us with your family and friends and leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts.